Let's see, we've got two things here. One thing from Right Stuff. Ow. Didn't actually hurt me, it just, Okay. Trying to remember if that one was maybe slated to come last week, but Right Stuff tends to be not as quick with their shipping. Then we've got these. Let's begin with actually this down here, Tales of Symphonia on the Blu-ray. Part of the reason you can think that this would be mostly aimed at last week is because this is a Disco Star Eastern Tech release. Japanese with English subtitles only. Journey to regenerate the world. And I think this one's been around for a while. It's just, this is its first release on Blu-ray. Let's go on disc 2. Okay, it's a full version of the picture used on the cover. Well, apparently there's some sort of ominous cave over there. Next up we have the case study of Vanitas. That's a Season 1 Part 1. Regions A and B, English dub. The cure lies in the curse. Different underneath the slipcover. Yay! I think this is a guy, although if they are, they're fairly effeminate. Because that's them there. I think that's still them, and that's true, but the angles are strange. It's neat. Curiosity piquer for sure. Two discs. Was there something else over here? I don't know. This is an interesting looking cast. I'm not sure what to think about it. Just interesting. And then, it's a small release, but we have Mushokui Tensei, aka Jobless Reincarnation. And this is a Season 1 Part 1 limited edition version. And yeah, this was pretty good. I think I said that, you know, one of the issues I kind of had with it is it doesn't flow like it's got a narrative per se. So like this character, I felt like we didn't get to learn as much about them as we really should have. Oh, regions A and B, English. And I'm not sure that the show forgot them, but it's just, it feels like life flowed on in a way. Maybe that's okay, because in a lot of ways that's the way life really is, and you could say that it may give a sense of realism to the story, because it didn't feel like it necessarily disrupted the theming of it or anything like that. Okay, this was the littler picture, and that's actually a really nice one. Mushokui Tensei. Let's see. It has an English dub, which makes sense. Second time's charm. Because there was definitely a dub on Crunchyroll, but I opted to watch Japanese with English subtitles. Oh, interesting. He's different. Different in the back. But you know, it's another isekai, and the general premise of this one, if you can't tell, is our main character is a shut-in and he reincarnates in another world as a kid, but it plays it off in a way that's interesting, where he's a fully sentient baby for all intents and purposes. So, he's a lot more mentally developed than he really ought to be. I'm not sure that that's everything this has going for it, but that's kind of the way it kind of presents itself. Next up, we have a booklet, which, as you can see, has him as teacher. Magic teacher. Ooh, a lot of character designs and things on the inside. And here comes the part that's additional for limited edition. Obviously, I think the case is more important for me. But these are probably what make this a more interesting. Jesus Christ, she's not wearing much, is she? Come on, I'm trying to. Well, if this was first, I wouldn't have even guessed that there would be two of them barely wearing anything. It's kind of funny. Okay, so the way I looked at these, they're wearing slightly more in each picture compared to the last. I feel like, though, this feels thick enough that I wonder if there's more. But interesting. I guess this is good for going on the bottom. And then I'm kind of curious about this. It's definitely a clothy thing. It probably says in the back, the fabric poster. Well, you know what? We're going to take a look at it. I almost wonder if it's that. If it is, it's no surprise that they've used it 3 times, because it's pretty. And I do believe it is that. As you can see, these characters are main character, the cloudy sky, that's pretty cool. Excuse me. Yeah, then you fold like this and like that. Maybe fold it like that. Because, I'm putting it right back into the plastic where it came from. Just thought it would be nice to put it on the wall or frame it or something, because this one actually looks very pretty. I don't know. I mean, any of you who have seen my apartment tours have known that I haven't really updated the place much. It's been a very slow. I haven't even swapped out the wall scrolls. If I get a house, I'll probably just have the same billion wall scrolls until the end of time. Yeah, as long as I've got this, makes sense to kind of put it in here. Don't want to shove it in there. Just want it to continue to take up the space that it used to, so that there's a sense of fullness for this until I get part 2. Whenever that comes out. It feels like part 1 took forever to come out. I watched it a long time ago. Anyways, there we go. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. Alright, let's see. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but we're going to begin with the anime, which isn't as numerous. I haven't done a lot of branching out to look for stuff. Pokemon, basically. But, let's see. So, Spy Family, Season 1, Episode 23. Continuation of the previous episode. Actually, a kind of funny. Absurd. I don't remember if I talked about it too much last time. And some of it is, unrealistic, but it's just having fun with it, and in that regard, it's fun. And I'd say probably the strongest thing of this episode is actually the little thing it does at the very end, because that one was amusing and funny and a very Spy Family thing to do. But now I think about it, we are getting close to, the end of the core. So the next 3 episodes would be the end, and I do wonder what it's doing. Because I wondered if it was beginning to set stuff up. But I guess it wasn't. Let's see. Beast Tamer, Episode 11. So, okay, stuff is happening. I guess the problem is it's hard to say if I'm feeling fulfilled watching it per se. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's got the greatest direction. There's definitely some curiosity in terms of when the next ultimate species is introduced and what that means. And, you know, if you haven't seen this, then of course you got a pretty good idea of where it's sort of heading. But I guess it's still kind of exploring that, but it feels a little directionless in terms of what it's doing. So, strange. But, again, if there's one thing that is nice about it, the characters, or the character designs are kind of neat. It's just the other things where it's like the world around it, too many black and white and sort of stuff. Something feels a little bit off about this and that, not necessarily in a completely unwatchable way, because obviously it hasn't driven me away, but I don't know, teeters on the edge of something. Bakuchi the Rock. Good build up to where it's going up next. If that was episode 10, then it's building up to a season finale, which is good. And I think it's kind of fun and enjoyable where it was going. It's not like it's not gut-bustingly funny as a series in general, but I feel like compared to a lot of its stuff, there were stronger Bakuchi moments in Bakuchi. I just hesitate saying Bakuchi because that was it sounds like the animator who made like Wizards and stuff like that. Maybe he's more well known for Felix the Cat and something else. Anyways, I felt like the botchyisms were a little more amusing in this episode, but they've been kind of amusing throughout. Maybe kind of getting a little close to that annoying territory, and so some people probably find her just annoying, which would be fair. But otherwise, you know, I'm kind of interested to see where the next couple episodes go and what they do, because they've been set up pretty well. Let's see, Chainsaw Man episode 9. So I mentioned episode 8 kind of had me a little bit concerned with what it was doing, and I think what I could put down, and I think I managed to think of this after I recorded last week's video, I think the issue I had is that, and maybe I already said this last week, I can't remember, that to me it feels like it did something where it's like, is this shaking up the status quo? Maybe. And there's some shows that feel like they just do it too much, and trying to put into feeling or into words what I was feeling, I think the reason it felt uncomfortable for me, and maybe feels uncomfortable for me in other situations, is because it feels like the show isn't very confident in its status quos that it sets up. Some shows absolutely need it. I think that's one of the reasons Naruto's Pain arc is particularly good, because, you know, the show just kind of fell into this 300 episode lull where it's like, well, we introduced this idea and we have neat moments in there, but it never really addresses the core idea of the series expressed at the very beginning. It never really addresses the problem that it named the series Naruto, and while our main character does have moments where that's notable, a lot of it doesn't seem to be like that. And unlike My Hero Academia, it doesn't feel like it's building up to that or anything like that. And so it's my understanding that the person that made Naruto was just playing around with stuff as they went, and so their inspiration wasn't necessarily planned from the get-go. But then the Pain arc, of course, was nice because it shook up the status quo, but that was a status quo that needed to be shook up. Chainsaw Man, I'm not sure if that felt like it. Now, this follow-up episode did a good job of I guess making it not feel like that was completely a waste per se. Maybe feeling kind of interested, curious, and hopeful where it goes from there. Wondering if I'm seeing some people talking about memes that are a couple episodes ahead of that, because, you know, I'm watching it dubbed, so Japanese with English subtitles would, of course, be ahead of where I'm at. But I don't know, I don't care. I'm not going to think too much about those, just kind of thoughts I had going out there. That at least Chainsaw Man episode 9 did a good job of saying, okay, yeah, we did that, but it's not that bad. And they may not have even said that, but it felt like they said that, and that kind of assuages me, and I am curious about the next episode. Good job. Let's see, To Your Eternity, Season 2, Episode 6. So after the big reveals that I got to see last week, I'm definitely curious where it's going there. And I do appreciate the fact that the series doesn't set that down and say, no, that was just a one-off thing that we're mentioning. It's still circling around that concept, and I'm not sure how it's playing around with it. I'm very curious what's going on, what's about to happen, because it's definitely setting up stuff that we haven't seen before. Which, again, this is something this show that I said is really good about Season 2. It doesn't feel like it's retreading already traveled grounds. It feels like it's always doing something new, but something that's still important and focused on what needs to be happening right here, right now. And I'm saying all this, I'm, again, watching it dubbed, and so I might be slightly behind the subbed. But interesting stuff. So My Hero Academia, Season 6, episodes 116 to 121. I'm just going by Crunchy Munchie's numbering because I can't do the conversion myself. Unless I start clicking tabs, but, you know, I'm driving myself, I'm staying on the edge of exhaustion anyways, so I'm taking certain shortcuts for some of the stuff tonight. Like, well, these are the shortcuts I would take anyways because I'm always exhausted, but, you know, I'm extra feeling it, extra doing it. But as for the contents of Season 6, last week I said that the first 2 episodes of the season, and I guess this would be maybe episodes 3 through 8 dubbed. I appreciated the fact that Season 6 started and it's like not pulling its punches. Like, instead of, oh, we had this big reveal for something at the end of the previous season, and are we going to waste like half a season or a quarter of a season before that comes up and becomes a major thing? No, again, Season 6 started off strong, saying that thing was important, it has to be addressed now, and it's addressing it now, and it's big stuff, important stuff. And it kind of began in a way where it's just like, okay, this is just all the events at a high level that's going on. But like I said, one of the things that's made My Hero Academia good is that it continues to remind you who the series is about. And I was thinking of this because, as I mentioned, Naruto, that's one of the big problems with most of watching Naruto. It's like, it's called Naruto, it's seen from the perspective of Naruto, we want to cheer for Naruto. Why is Naruto not a more integral part of these stories other than, you know, like, there's moments where it is and isn't, and it's not necessarily going away from that, but it doesn't feel like it's sticking to that as strongly as it needs to. And My Hero Academia is just great because it's always about coming back to that core of what our main character is going through and having to deal with is the most important stuff in the long run, and in the short to medium run you should see bits and pieces of that build up to it. And like, even this far into Season 6, it's showing some of that stuff. It's just like, this is actually some pretty fucking intense stuff. It's unfortunate that was the end of the available dub episodes, I think. And then I have to wonder if me and my friend are we going to watch one episode per week from this point, just whatever happens to be out, or we're going to save it for a batch, because both of those sound like horrible options, to be honest. Because at this point, I'm invested in seeing where this season is going to go. I want to know. Oh, geez, it ended on that cliffhanger. That's right. Jesus fucking Christ. This has been a good season. That's probably just a beep beep from being direct messaged on Discord, which I can't check, of course, until I'm done recording. Let's see. So, before I can finish recording, of course, I have to finish talking about more anime. Reincarnated as a Sword, Season 1, episode... I have episode 9 right in here. I'm trying to think if that's what I actually watched. It's whatever the latest episode was, and a pretty good episode. Let's see, they had already taken care of that, so this was about here. Now, if there's one thing about this episode that can be criticized, it's that it's revealing information that's usually the sort of world building built kind of more towards the beginning to middle of the season, and here we're getting closer to the middle end of the season. And while it did develop into something interesting, this season, or this episode, is really about setting up that idea I've been talking about. We as an audience need to know the competency of our characters, overall speaking. And I'm definitely curious to see where they're going, because the next episode is definitely strongly exploring that. How strongly and in what ways, I want to see. I'm very curious. So I guess you could say episode 9 did some maybe overdue world building, rule building, as well as a good setup for the next episode. Good stuff. And then after that, it's non-anime stuff. Let's see, episode of Rick and Morty. Very entertaining little episode. I wonder if that was supposed to be a season finale. I should double check, because I don't know if my numbers mentally add up correctly. I didn't feel like it, but I just need to take a look at and check the numbers. But fun stuff. Oh, Jesus, sorry. Dead by Daylight, I guess. We'll talk about Dead by Daylight next. Their holiday event has started, and I have to give mad props to Behavior for doing what I think is actually a really good job. So, I think last year they introduced snowmen. Like, last year was when they first introduced them, and the idea there is that survivors could hop in a snowman and slowly shuffle around, and the killer could hit them and knock them out of it, and the snowman would take the hit. So, the only risk to the survivors, if they were in too close of a chase and they didn't get in the snowman in time, which was longer than it would always seem. But, that would be that otherwise there was just funny things you could do with it. But, there were two problems with it. The first problem is, like I mentioned, if you attack the survivor who was in a snowman, then it didn't count as a hit against the person. It changed the health state, as in like the health state from snowman to whatever the survivor was. So it that made it where it was really hard for a lot of killers to play. Maybe not a lot. Maybe like moderate number of killers to play. Anybody that is super heavy M1 dependent, we're just kind of getting screwed over. People with insta-kills, I think, were maybe getting screwed over, stuff like that. And I think the twins were just completely screwed over because somebody could hide in a snowman, and if you tried to victor them, it would pop the snowman, but the person would be uninjured, your victor would be stunned, they get kicked, then they could just hop in another snowman before Charlotte gained control and got over there. So, there was that problem, and the other problem is you add these fun mechanisms, but the killer's only way of interacting is to be paranoid of every fucking snowman, or to see that survivor just hopped in a snowman and, okay, I guess I'm going to try to figure out how to get you. And maybe play around that some. So, this year, snowmen no longer tank a hit for you. You're getting in a snowman either to be stealthy or to have fun. And I think along those lines, snowmen also move a little bit quicker now, it feels like. Like, they're not super fast or anything by that manner, but they are still, I think they're faster than they were before, so that people can actually move around and try to do silly things in them. But, again, that's no longer screwing over M1 killers. And then the other funny thing they're doing is killers can get in snowmen now, too. And while it's a little bit buggy, it does kind of mean that killers and survivors can actually do funny things together. And at least the first couple nights when I was doing it, it seemed to encourage more killers to not play sweaty, because we don't need to play sweaty to have fun. We have this other fun thing. Let's all hop in snowmans, and maybe they'll try to sneak up on you in a snowman instead, or they'll go on a snowman to snowman chase. I'll get you. I feel like it encompasses everything better. And at the same time, because the cosmetics aren't tied to hitting survivors in snowman or being hit in a snowman while you're a survivor, there's less jankiness to getting the holiday items, which, they were perfectly fine before. But in this case, it basically means everybody's just focusing on event tome stuff and getting the holiday items that way. And they're just having fun in the snowman for the sake of having fun in the snowman. Now, granted, I was also playing a build that was just completely... that one night, I was using a Pebble, which, for those of you who don't know about Dead by Daylight, it's a skill that the idea is if you're hiding in the killer's terror radius, you charge it up, and then once it reaches full, you can crouch and throw a rock, and it creates a loud noise notification wherever it lands and some scratch marks wherever it lands to. The idea is to distract the killer. But if you're like me and you're not really playing to be serious in any way, shape, or form, then you're trying to get the killer's attention to come to you, and then you throw a rock at them. And a lot of killers just seem to find that really funny, cute, enduring, something about that. I got chosen by a couple of killers to not get killed because I did that, even though I was doing it expecting to get killed. So, and that's obviously, that's not playing to be serious, and they had fun with that. I think we had fun. It was just a fun night. But Pokemon, and this week is a special notable one because you know, obviously I played through Violet, and I had my thoughts and opinions on the storyline. But version exclusive stuff, if I want to be the one in control of getting that, because I don't like doing Wonder Trade stuff if I can help it, I made an exception for a Ditto trade to get the foreign Ditto stuff with the Ditto code. That's 448448. If I remember correctly. Google it, look it up, make sure you find out if you need to. You know, you do that one in order to get a foreign Ditto so that when you breed something with that Ditto, there's an increased chance of shiny. Assuming, of course, you don't have another foreign Ditto from that same region. But I've got a Japanese Ditto, and everything I have is English. It's all fine. The person I traded with, hopefully they were Japanese. They got an English Ditto. Everything's fine for them. We're all happy. Just too many communication errors that made it where it took too long for me to trade. But happy. But when I want to get, you know, the Paradox Pokemon, the version Legendary, and I'm not going to use those, I have to play through the game myself. And I've been trying to think what exactly that means, and yeah, maybe last week I started talking about how I was trying to prepare this. And so what I did do is, I think the thing I was mumbling about trying to do, which is I transferred over a Quaxaleg, hatched it. This time he was not going to be traded out, because trading out and back in is how you make it where Pokemon can start disobeying you. So he's in there. Instead, I transferred in that's 16 Pokemon holding items. 2 items for EV training, 2 items to you know, give it the right nature and give it the right ability, and then 12 XL candies from raids. Those 12 candies, Raids is leveled to 70. He EV trained himself in the level 1 area, and then Sunday I played through the story of Scarlet all the way up from, you know, beginning at the first Pokemon Center when Nimona, that the first one she takes you to and tells you about, that's when you unlock the ability to open Poke Portal and start trading. And so from that point in the game all the way to the very end, I played that in a single sitting on a single day, 13-hour stream, and I caught all the Pokemon that I needed and some of the ones that my Twitch friend Moth needed in order to complete our Pokédexes. And, you know, I finished up the stream by catching Koraidon, the version Legendary of Scarlet. And so I've had a chance to trade them all over. At this point, my Pokédex just requires 2 more Pokemon to complete, and that just requires me to level up Zwaydon, maybe, to Hydreigon, and then breed the Hydreigon for a Dino, whichever one it's supposed to be called, Duno. But once I have those, I have a complete Pokédex, I get the Shiny Charm, and maybe I start exploring what it means to get shinies. I'm not exactly sure, because there is still some motivation to get Pokemon trained up. So, like, right now I have 2 switches with Scarlet and Violet, but I'm being very cautious because I'm being very cautious in Scarlet, because if I'm supposed to unlock, if I'm supposed to fight 5-star raid battles to unlock the 6-star, unlike my other game, which had some Pokemon that were actually decently set up to potentially do that, this one isn't quite set up for that. Because while the Gardevoir is nice and strong, it doesn't have choice specs, and I don't know if I want to do that or if I want to explore better options so that the two games can work together. So, for example, I might actually try shiny hunting for a Pokemon, and if I get it, I already have a non-shiny version of the Pokemon I have in mind in my team, so I might train up the shiny one to be exactly the same as the non-shiny one, have the shiny one take over in my main party, and have the non-shiny one go over to Scarlet as reserves for its collection of stuff. And I might have other ones that I focus on and try to basically get it all up and working. So that I can maybe do 5-star battles with myself. So like I can have maybe an attacking Pokemon on this game, and that game has a support Pokemon, and I can give myself the support I need. I probably was just mentioning a good combination of Pokemon, but I'll have to think about that later. I guess I can't get shiny of absolutely every Pokemon simply because this game would have to start getting Herba Mystica on its own, as well as complete its own Pokédex to get the shiny whatchamacallit if I wanted to go that route. So I might go different routes instead. But that's some of the ideas I've been having lately of things I could try to do, and now I've played through Scarlet. Once I'm finished with the Pokédex, that does become appealing to maybe try to do that. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Otherwise, this coming weekend is Charizard 7-star raids coming back. This time I have more Pokemon to choose from, but more importantly, I'm probably going to have a Fluttermane trained up. Fluttermane being really good for soloing them, so joining other people on a team would be pretty good. I might have other good options as well. Although, no, that one's anti-physical, so I'm okay with not doing that. So there will be things to think about, but interesting. Things to think about. Alright. But I'm not going to be thinking about it too much right now because there's plenty of things I can do. Oh, I did want to say, playing through it again, the story really is great. So it's like, like a lot of Pokemon games, the story as you're progressing through it isn't that great. I think the real quality of the stuff tends to come in more towards how does the end of the story tend to work out. And I think Scarlet Violet is top of the tier. So even though I had seen this stuff before, I was streaming it mostly so that my Twitch friend who had also played through on Violet, they could also see what the story might be like playing for somebody going through. And I'm glad I did it because the three things I found. One of them was not surprising. I thought certain elements of Violet worked better thematically for what the story was doing. And I don't want to go into details about that. But what did surprise me was that there were a couple of small scenes where it's like, okay, Miraidon never felt quite right here. Koraidon actually feels better at this part. Although that said, I don't like the wingspan of Koraidon. It feels like it should be much wider. So that's one criticism I definitely have. Him running around a whole lot instead of being on a futuristic bike. It's definitely a very off-putting if you're thinking of riding your ride Pokemon as a ride Pokemon. But once you get used to the idea, there's actually a fun energy to the way Koraidon runs around. But, all that said, the main important thing, I think, is the impact of the story. Because if you haven't heard, a lot of people are finding it to be surprisingly more impactful than you would think when you start. And even though I had already seen it, it was still very impactful playing it again. Which is the final and most important note, which is that I think it doesn't matter which version of the game you get, you're getting a damn satisfying story. Again, I think I agree with other people who are saying this is the best out there. Now, not the best champion. In fact, Greta has a whole lot of things that are just like, yeah, I've seen YouTube videos that are just like, you know, if they change these Pokemon out for this and this and this, she'd have a memorable putty. She'd be the next fucking Cynthia. And she could probably get away with it, because other than her team just not making any sense and not feeling very champion-y and notable, her character design is almost fine. I say almost fine. I think that there's something off-putting about her face that I can't quite put to it. Like, she feels more artificial than the other characters, which is kind of strange way to put it. Like, you almost feel like it doesn't feel like the face of a character so much as somebody drew that. But if you put that aside, and I'm wondering if it's like the shape of her eyes or something that are triggering this, because everything else seems pretty great about her design otherwise. In fact, there's one thing about the game, and that I think regardless of how good or bad I think a lot of characters I felt like a lot of the character designs were either great or interesting in a satisfying way. I think there was maybe, like, I'd say Arvin is kind of a stinker in that regard. Like, I don't know what it is. There's something off-putting about the way he looks, but he grows on you better. But it's still, there's something off-putting about the way he looks, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what that is. And the only reason you can blame a guy for that, because in real life you can't do that, but in a video game you can definitely blame somebody for that, because somebody designed that character. That character wasn't born that way. And, you know, you could also I can't help but feel like it's something about his hair. Or maybe he's just one of those ones, because he uses the fall uniform, and those kind of bug me for some reason. Although the one in Scarlet doesn't bug me anywhere near as much as the one from Violet. But I don't know. I digress. Lots of stuff to think about. Good Pokemon game in this time around. Buggy, yes. Performance problems, sure. Still fun even when it's only running at 10 frames per second for some reason. Probably just all the grass and flowers and stuff swaying in the wind. Oops. Alright. There we go. Now, finally, video wrapped up for reals. Y'all, have a nice week.